What's up, guys, and welcome back to the infamous project. We are working on a Saturday here, helping out my foxbody neighbor John, who lives a mile down the street. Randomly knocked on his door one day. I said, "Saw your foxbody there underneath the carport. You know, is it for sale?" Of course it wasn't, because he had just bought it. You know what? We've become really good friends ever since. So got his car up on the lift here, and he has done quite a bit of work to this car in the past little while. It's a 93 black on gray leather hatch. Pretty clean car. It's been painted, but it's solid. There's no rust anywhere. It's in really nice shape, and he got a really nice healthy motor built for it. So he has got a 306 with trick flow heads and Holley intakes. Nice cam. I forget which cam it is. Anyways, the thing sounds great, sounds mean. Here in Texas, unfortunately, you can't get much exhaust work, and it's hard to get your annual state inspection with no catalytic converters. Now, you can get it done. You can. So although the thing sounds badass with no cats on it, as we can see right here, this off-road H-pipe has seen better days. This was actually all rotted out, so they had to weld in a little section here. And, you know, it hangs kind of low to the ground down near the collector areas here. Now, part of this could be the reasoning with the flow tubes kind of going down on an angle, but I think both things are kind of going down on angles here. You can see the old classic no hangers going up to the portion of the transmission mount here, because it's actually been deleted. Normally there is little rubber bushings on either side here where there'd be an arm going up from your H-pipe to help secure it. Now, a lot of people remove that. So needless to say, you can see there's a patch that's been welded here or something weird. We got a new H-pipe on the ground here. This is an eBay kit. I forget who it's from. I guess the gentleman's got really good reviews online. I will get the details and I will post those up. And he's knocking out these kits himself with some high flow cats in there already pre-installed. Comes with all your clamps and everything you need to get the job done. So we're going to be installing that. And we're also going to be doing some control arm work. So one thing that a lot of people overlook, and I get it, there's some jobs we just don't want to do. And in fact, I don't even want to do it, but we're going to do it today. That is the carrier bushing. It's up here in the differential. You can see that somebody's already replaced the lowers and the uppers, which would ultimately have nice poly bushings and grease fittings and everything else. So I'm confident that the bushings are probably good in these uppers, even though he bought a set of stock factory upper replacements here. So I don't even know if we're going to go ahead with these. I'm going to have to reach out to him and ask. We are going to put these lowers in with new bushings and get rid of these, what are these, BBK grips, I believe. So these are going to come out. The MMs are going to go in, and we're going to swap out these carrier bushings. The car's already up in the air, half the battle. I need to go get some jack posts so that way we can support the differential while we're doing some control arm work, and safety first, right? So I'm gonna zip over to my commercial unit, go grab two of those guys so I have them, and we'll get cranking away at stuff. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna drop the H-pipe first real quick and get that out of the way. I figure, you know what, if we have a little bit of wiggle room with the exhaust, with the H-pipe down, might help out, give us a little bit more room to play with up here. I don't think it's necessary or needed to get the job done, but might as well just get that off while we're under here. Another thing, guys, I took this O2 sensor out. I took it out because I don't know if you guys saw that O2 sensor that I took out of the DR car. This is always right in the way of getting at that nut. and people end up trying to run an extension next to it and they just beat the living shit out of that O2 sensor. So remove it. I get it. O2 sensors, they get stuck. They're a hassle to try and get out sometimes. There's tools for that. See this? With the slot, slides right over, allows your wiring to go through. And this on a bar, you're gonna get your O2 sensor out. It does help if you warm the car up first, you know, get the metal nice and warm first. And from there, you should be able to get that oxygen sensor out without having to potentially damage it or do any other stuff like that. So anyways, I'm gonna zip out this H-pipe real quick, and then we'll go get the jack posts and get these control arms and carrier bushings knocked out. All right guys, we're gonna do one arm at a time. You see I got these under hoist stands supporting the weight of the differential. Got this bolt out, no problem, 18 millimeter nut and bolt head, and then just took a pry bar and swung the control arm upward. And you can see the condition of this bushing is all cracked and everything else. So it's a good thing that we're gonna get those done. Like I said, we're gonna ultimately leave these upper control arms in here because they are aftermarket and look like they're in good shape with those bushings. So we'll just make sure we get them all greased up. Now, carrier bushings. The not so fun part, right? So everybody upgrades all their stuff and nobody wants to change these. So there's this nifty tool here that I have in my hand from Maximum Motorsports, and this is going to press the bushing out. It comes with these instructions, which I'm going to read up on now and follow. And hopefully everything goes nice and smooth. So I'm just going to be following all this stuff here. Hopefully we can pop our old ones out and get our new ones in. All right guys, so got the first one out. It's the first time I have actually done these. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I do a lot of stuff and we still learn new things every day, do things for the first time. And here's our old bushing. So one thing that I didn't mention is sprayed everything down first with some lube, penetrating lube. They say to use some anti-seize. On this guy, I just kept spraying it down with WD-40, and so far so good. So now that that's out, we get to put the new one in right here. So we're gonna read the instructions on how we do that. It says lube them, recoat the washers and threads the bolts, and gonna use this other tool and then the bigger plate. So there's another one of these, so we'll get all that together and we'll start pulling this guy through. All right guys, so that wasn't too bad. Got the new bushing installed and looks pretty good in there. So followed the directions. You know, you just, when you're installing it, the bushing will actually bottom out. It's really important that you use the 3 washers on both sides, because when you run out of threads, that's when you stop pulling that bushing in, and pretty much the indicator to know that you're there. So I'm gonna go ahead now and do the driver's side. I'm not tightening that down yet. I'm gonna wait until this side is done, and then we'll get weight back on the car. Then we'll tighten everything down. I believe 75-ish or so foot-pounds. And then we'll get on to swapping out the lower arms. Once that's done, we can finish bolting up that H-pipe. reinstalled, had the under hoist stands, put the weight of the suspension on the underside of the car, torqued everything down to spec, and greased up all our fittings, got our sway bar reinstalled, got the springs put back in, and the shocks, everything else that gave us that movement to allow us to get access to the control arms. It's important to do one at a time, and you guys won't have to worry about trying to fight and get holes to line up and everything else. So everything is good to go there. Now I'm gonna go ahead and button up this exhaust, and I'm gonna use the posts underneath here, try and get everything leveled up. And then of course, we're gonna have to get our clamps on these guys, and then put in our new O2 sensors, and everything should be good to go. All right, so I think I found some hardware and got everything sort of mocked up here, looking for symmetry to make sure that the tips are 100% aligned, same distance from the bumper, right and left. You wanna make sure that you give yourself tire clearance. You wanna make sure that something like this is not happening, like it did in the past, where the tailpipe was clearly up against the gas tank cover. You wanna make sure that you have clearance up in your frame rail here, away from your fuel lines. You don't want any rattles. You want to make sure that you have clearance where your upper control arms are. So everything here looks pretty good. And you can see I've used a little spacer here to hold things in place. Use some 4x4s underneath these posts. You want to make sure that the way that the flange is going on straight and not crooked. And so far, this H-pipe looks pretty good. We'll get the O2s threaded in here. This could maybe come a little bit over here to get a little bit more centered in the archway of the transmission crossmember here, but you know what, it's not gonna move. You know, your exhaust doesn't move unless you ultimately drive over something and you scrape it and you push it up. So everything should be okay there. And yeah, I am gonna try and tuck this exhaust as high as possible because I know he wants to ride low. And now, before where we used to have that angle down, that is gone. And same with the flow tubes, those used to be angled down. This is now our lowest point right here. So I don't know how much drama that these might potentially cause. You know what, let's take a look in comparison to the subframe connector. You know, if we get something, you know, so we're a little lower than the subframe connector here. So, like, ultimately that is where those cats need to be. Could be worse. Anyways, let's get everything tightened up. We'll get it back on the ground. We're gonna see how it sounds. And most importantly, we'll take the car for a drive, make sure that all of our control arms and suspension and everything else is doing good after that we've torqued everything down, and make sure that it's good to go back to my neighbor. Guys, it actually doesn't sound too much quieter than it did before with those high flow cats on there. So this note to self, you could actually be legal and still sound pretty good at the same time. Again, just random eBay H-pipe. I'm gonna go out for my test drive now. I'm sure everything will be okay. The tailpipe section does still need to get welded on, and I'll probably allow to get those tips straight 100% where they need to be. We'll get that to an exhaust shop not too far away. They'll be able to work on the car now because it has catalytic converters, and we can get everything welded up that needs to be and make sure we don't have any exhaust leaks. There you guys have it. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you here next time on the Infamous Project.